your host, Darnell Duff.
That ball hit hard. Stretch. Austin Jackson back looks up. Buchanan. Ready on the board. Yeah. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is the First Row Sports Show on CABC3, the future broadcasting Monday afternoon, 1:12 p.m. I got Damon Perron. Damon, how you doing today?
Very good.
All right, let's start it off. We're going to start, before we get to the draft that happened on Friday night, we're going to get to the Hall of Fame ceremony that will be tonight. We have a few guys that are looking to get in there. Nick Lidstrom seems like he's almost a pretty sure lock getting into the Hall of Fame. Chris Pronger is also there. Dave Andreychuk, Phil Housley, Curtis Joseph, Eric Lindros, Chris Osgood, Mark Recchi, and Jeremy Roenick. Is there anybody on that list that maybe shouldn't be there, and anybody that they missed off the top of your head that perhaps should be?
Chris Osgood. It's kind of a joke to be on that list. I think he's a very B-list goaltender.
Well, let's look at some of his stats. I mean, he's 10th all-time with 401 wins. Now, I know Detroit was a dynasty back when he played with Detroit, but nonetheless, 401 wins. He's got 3 Stanley Cup championships, all with the Red Wings, 1997, 98, and 2008. His 15 shutouts in the Stanley Cup playoffs are 4th all-time, and he's 8th with 74 playoff wins. So, I mean, he's got the stat to back him up going into the Hall.
Really? Because I see a goalie that played for a tremendous team. And
but
basically, they for Detroit, they didn't need to have good goaltending to win those.
But
games.
I also see a goalie who made saves when he needed to. And, I mean, you need a goalie. I know with how it is now and talking about Corey Crawford, maybe you don't need an exceptional goalie to win you games, but you do need a goalie who's going to step up and make big saves when they need it. I mean, he's got 3 cups to show for it.
Again, I don't think Chris Osgood's good enough to be in the Hall of Fame. He's not a household name. He's not a guy when I'm growing up in Quebec playing hockey thinking, Chris Osgood is the goalie I want to be. I think he's just the right guy in the right time that played for Detroit and won 3 cups.
Well, let's move on to another goaltender, Curtis Joseph. He's 4th all-time with 454 wins and his 943 games. He skated in 2 NHL All-Star games and won the King Clancy Memorial Trophy in 2000. Is he a goalie that should be going into the Hall of Fame?
See, it's tough with Curtis Joseph because, he's 4th all-time with wins, but I think one of the bigger problems with him is the fact that he never won anything. And he was it's tough. He was in an age or an era in the NHL where goal scoring was higher, too, at the beginning of his career. He had some tremendous playoffs with St. Louis. Went to Toronto. He played very well. But it all comes down to, is this a guy that deserves to be in the Hall of Fame? Is his regular season wins pretty much the only thing that would be the thing that would get him into the Hall of Fame?
You could say he was one of the bright spots in a Toronto Maple Leafs uniform in his time.
And Toronto wasn't a bad team when he played for them either.
They weren't bad, but
but they never did anything, and that's the
exactly
thing, right? You don't win a cup, and you don't necessarily need to win a cup to be in the Hall of Fame. But he didn't do anything that stands out to me. He never carried.
If he did win a cup and carry his team, he's pretty much solidified like Nick Lidstrom is.
Well, Nick Lidstrom.
He's another breed. I mean, Lidstrom played 20 years in Detroit.
Talent, right?
You're not going to get more money, more defensemen like him.
Cujo is replaceable. Nick Lidstrom isn't, right? That's to me, that's what it sounds like. That's the benchmark for a player, and I don't think Curtis Joseph was the type of player that could carry a franchise.
Now, a quick question before we move on to the draft. Chris Pronger, he's not even retired yet. He's on the long-term IR. He still has a contract. Some people are bringing up, how can you put a guy who's still eligible to play in the Hall of Fame? Are you on that same mindset? How can he go into the Hall?
Pronger is... He's an anomaly just because, the guy just got traded. How does that make any sense? He got traded to the Arizona Coyotes for cap space for Philadelphia. And they picked up Sam Gagner, a player that can play. So, that whole situation with Pronger is super confusing because he works for the league and is paid by franchise. So, there's a big conflict of interest there. For some reason, it's allowed, and it's all good. So the trade went, and it happened, and everything's good. But it's just something that you kind of go how is this happening? And I think as long as this situation keeps going on, I don't see how Chris Pronger could be in the Hall of Fame. How can you be in the Hall of Fame working for the league and still be employed by a team? That doesn't make any sense to me.
He gets in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he's got pretty much.
I think he's in because
it's Chris Pronger.
Revolutionized the sport.
Absolutely.
Like his defensive play. He was a beast on the back end. He was a great skater, great passer. He could score big goals, tremendous hitter, great defenseman. So he's in the Hall of Fame. I just don't know if it's this year. And if he's in, I'm not going to argue against it.
Well, I don't think many people are going to argue as much, just maybe question it. Nonetheless, the Hall of Fame will announce its class of 2015,
and
4 p.m. Eastern.
One more thing on that. The fact that he's not retired yet, I think.
That's the biggest question you can ask. But
he's eligible because he hasn't played in the last 3 seasons.
And he probably will.
He never will play again. He's never ever playing another game.
He never will play again. So I mean, I think they're looking at him as he's basically retired without the retired symbol on him.
Well, and I mean, would you retire? Because he retires, that contract is.
He doesn't need to. Why retire?
Why would you?
If he can get in the Hall of Fame,
6 years.
Yeah. What's the point of retiring? I think maybe if he doesn't get into the Hall of Fame this year, they're going to maybe say, you know what, the reason you didn't get into the Hall of Fame was because you didn't retire. And I mean, if you're Chris Pronger, why not play? Why not get paid for a few more years? And
Chris Pronger doesn't care. He knows he's in the Hall of Fame.
Get into the Hall of Fame 4 years from now. Yeah, what does it matter?
Exactly.
Anyways, let's switch things up. It seems every year around this time with the NHL draft, trades are going crazy. Connor McDavid goes to the Edmonton Oilers. Jack Eichel goes to Dylan Strome. I want to talk about Strome for a minute. 3rd pick to the Arizona Coyotes. We know this team is in a definite rebuild. The whole city of Glendale is just in a total shamble right now. 129 points last season rather, playing with Connor McDavid for the Erie Otters. How good is Dylan Strome? And is he going to help? I mean, he's going to help, but how much is he going to help Arizona as they rebuild and try and get better?
I think Dylan Strome, he's not going to see much ice time. I think if Arizona was to bring him in and let him play, that would stunt his growth.
Well, he's going to see more ice time than you may think. I mean,
yes, talent-wise, he's one of their better players on the team. But do you really want a 18-year-old offensive player to come into the league who knows? Like I can't say that I've watched much Strome play, but the NHL game is completely different from the junior game. There is going to be growing pains. Now, do you want to bring an 18-year-old and throw him into the fire in a place like Arizona?
But we could
all of the distractions
we could
that
say
are happening?
Guys like Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby. Now I know
different.
Dylan Strome isn't the same player as these guys are, but he is probably their top 3 talent on Arizona.
Yeah, but being a top 3 talent on a franchise is not the same as being a generational talent, which is what Connor McDavid is, which is Jack Eichel, which is Sidney Crosby, all those types of players. Those guys are built.
But Dylan Strome is the future of the Arizona Coyotes.
Absolutely. But bring him in. Don't bring him in at a snail's pace, but bring him in slowly. Don't throw him into the fire. Arizona is such a heap of absolute disaster. Why bring your player in there and subject him to that?
Well, the Toronto Maple Leafs with the 4th pick overall, their first pick took Mitchell Marner, 5'11", 160 pounds, played for the London Knights last year. He was really good for the Knights. This is an interesting pick for the Maple Leafs, just in one fact that I think they had to lean more defensively. I mean, yes, getting Mitchell Marner, he's a player, but if you would have took Noah Hanifin, D-man, who played for Boston College last year, 203 pounds, 6'2", I mean, okay, Marner, he's great offensively, but realistically, I think Hanifin would have been a better fit for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I wonder what or how much Mike Babcock input was on this. Toronto was trying to do a rebuild. You don't draft offensive players first if you're drafting to build.
Now, just before you go on with this, just keep it in your head that Babcock and Shanahan do not have a good relationship. They don't really like each other, which I'm surprised.
Which is weird, right? Because why would you hire a guy you don't
Exactly. Like? That's why I was thinking, why is Babcock even in Toronto? But
because he's the sexy name.
Yeah, he is. You can't. I mean, if you have the chance to sign him, you sign him. But they don't have a great relationship. So, I mean, Shanahan's Babcock's boss. So do you think Babcock had a bit influence in this?
I can't see how he wouldn't.
But
I really couldn't.
If he knows the team is rebuilding, and he said himself they're rebuilding, you pick goaltender out. So don't you think you would have took the D-man?
that's the confusing thing. And like, I'm shocked that Hanifin dropped to 5 to Carolina. Like, good for Carolina.
Yeah, that's great for Carolina.
And other teams, like teams that had multiple draft picks in the first round, shame on you for not trading up. Hanifin's going to be an all-star defenseman. He's going to be a franchise-altering defenseman. And for whatever reason, he falls to 5. Like, it's good for Carolina. Like, that's awesome. For Toronto, Mitch Marner, he's got tremendous upside.
Yes, but
you're in a Toronto market that is going to eat you
alive. It's going to eat him alive.
Now, this is where Mike Babcock comes in, right? Because he's an experienced coach. He knows how to lead. He knows how to bring young players along. He did it in Detroit.
He does, and I'm not taking anything away from Mike Babcock. He is an outstanding coach, but he's never coached in a place like Toronto. He's great.
Yeah, but
Toronto's a different
coached,
breed.
Yeah, but he's coached in Original Six markets, Detroit. Like, it's not like the market as far as like the media goes is different.
Toronto is the biggest beast media-wise.
Yeah, but I mean, he knows the drill. He knows what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
It's not like he's going into this going, I have no idea. He knows. So as far as that goes, and he's already said, the first 4 years of this contract, of his 8-year contract, it's a building stage. It doesn't mean anything. What his experience and when he becomes that next level coach is in 4 years afterwards, when this team has built a team and he can lead them to the promised land. That remains to be seen with the people that are in charge. I mean, they still don't have a GM in place.
No, I mean the whole franchise right now is in question, really. I mean, you have a coach, sure.
You've got some upside, right? You're still looking to trade Phil Kessel. You're still looking to trade Dion Phaneuf. You have pieces that you can get rid of. And you want to build this team.
Especially if they trade Dion Phaneuf. I mean, what do you have on your back end? And the media is going to... Toronto media is going to eat up a player who's playing offense and not putting up big numbers than if they had a D-man and not putting up as big numbers but playing good defense. So, I mean, I think this whole pick is a mistake by Toronto.
No, it's not, because Marner's a very good player.
Okay,
he's
sure.
He's going to adapt
but
to Toronto's.
If he doesn't put up big numbers, he's going to absolutely get eaten up.
Sure. I'll say this. Where it becomes a bad pick is how Toronto handles him in their organization and other young players in their organization. In the past, we've seen it's eaten people up. I mean, you look at guys like Kadri. He's struggled, to say the least. And it's because he hasn't had a franchise that's been there to back him up and lead him in the right direction. Now, with Mike Babcock in place, you've got a completely different culture already. So maybe that's where you can build off of. Maybe Mike Babcock is that glue for the franchise to be able to build and like go for the future. Bringing in young players, bringing in talent from the draft, and molding them to what you want them in the franchise. They haven't had that before. Now they might have it. It all remains to be seen what Babcock can do with this franchise.
Well, Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel, Dylan Strome, Mitchell Marner, and Noah Hanifin go top 5. Pavel Zacha is number 6. After the break, we're going to keep talking about the NHL. We're going to talk about the Winnipeg Jets and their picks. You're listening to the First Row Sports Show on CABC3, the future of broadcasting. Welcome back to the First Row Sports Show on CABC3, the future of broadcasting. That was Unkind by Sloan, Darnell Duff, Damon Perron. We're going to keep talking. We're going to talk about the Winnipeg Jets and their 16th pick overall, Kyle Connor. Kyle had a pretty good last year. I mean, he played with the Youngstown Phantoms of the USHL. 56 games, played 80 points, 34 goals, and 46 assists. But the question is Kyle a guy who is maybe in the thoughts of being in the lineup next year?
No.
Or is he a guy who's long-term maybe 3 or 4 years away?
Well, I mean, he's, from everything that I've heard, everything I've read, he has elite-level talent in this league, which is great. I mean, the Jets get him at 17. That's crazy, right? Of course, you've had 3 picks by Boston that kind of flubbed what was going on.
We're going to talk to that. Well, yeah, we'll get to Boston a little bit later. We need a lot of time for that one.
Kyle Connor, apparently, he's all-world skating ability. He's got great hands. The Jets went heavy American in this draft, picking 4 guys out of the USHL. They must know something. I mean, this team has done a great job of drafting since they've moved to Winnipeg.
They really have.
Phenomenal considering how bad they were in Atlanta.
And I mean, in this day and age, you need skaters. I mean, you don't have a lot of room,
NHL,
but you still do need skaters. You can't, like we talked on the show last year, there isn't a place for just fighting in the NHL anymore. If you're just a fighter,
right?
You have to have skill. If you're just strictly a fighter, you're not playing in the NHL.
Right. And so, Mitch Marner, who I think what the situation with him is, He knows he's probably not going to make the team. He'll come up. He'll participate in the young guns camp out in BC. He'll play. He'll come in and do the preseason for the Jets. See how he goes. But I'm thinking he knows he's going to be playing for the University of Michigan this year.
Yeah, we
and good for him. Like that's a great organization, a great program to play in. So he's going to get experience. And whether he ends up going to juniors afterwards or if he sticks in Michigan for the next couple of years, I mean, let's give the kid's young. He's 19, right? So he's 18. He hasn't even turned 19 yet. But give him time. He's a great talent to pick up. Great pick by the Jets, and they've only done nothing more than stock the cupboards as far as the prospect pool goes for this team.
Yeah, let's talk about this 26th pick overall for the Winnipeg Jets. They're second in the first round. Another American, like you said, they went heavy Americans in the first round. Jack Roslovich, 1997 born. 18 years old, center and right wing. He is young, but he's a big boy. 6'1", 185 centimeters. And I mean, they were saying at the draft, this guy can skate, but he can handle himself as well. I mean, he's 6'1", 185 pounds. I mean, this is a big boy.
Yeah. I mean, still undersized as far as weight goes
in
the league.
He's undersized, but I mean,
that comes with time.
There's a lot of guys that come in. Connor McDavid, you can argue, he's undersized as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean,
he's different, right? Like that's
yes, but a lot of people that come drafted,
his talent is
some people can't even lift weights. If you go back to Sam Reinhart a couple of years ago, I mean,
for sure.
It takes time for these guys. But let's look at his season in 2014, 2015 with the U.S. National Under-18 team in the Development League. He had 79 points in 65 games, 27 and 52 with 28 penalty minutes. So I mean, I think the Jets got two good picks. I don't think they could have asked for much more out of the first round of the draft. I mean, I know they were looking to try and draft up to get Dylan Strome. You question why they would have wanted Dylan Strome. Tell me why.
Because they need defense. You're going to have guys like Big Buff and Toby Enstrom that are going to be leaving this franchise soon. Toby Enstrom is not worth the money he makes, but he's signed for the next couple of years. So the Jets have to figure out what they're going to do with that. And you got Bufflin, whose contract expires at the end of this year. Like this next season, sorry.
Bufflin,
he's 30.
Bufflin is gone before the season end.
If not sooner, the longer you wait on this, the worse it is for you as a franchise for assets.
I think they want to wait until Bufflin maybe has a good start of the season, and if he does,
maybe
you got to ship him once he has a good start of the season. You cannot wait.
Sure,
if he has a really good start, get him out of there.
But that's the thing, right? Like right now, he's got very, very high return.
But
he's
coming off a suspension at the end of the regular season.
That doesn't matter.
But also coming off a pretty mediocre playoffs.
The whole Jets franchise was mediocre.
Well,
playoffs.
but
this is their first time in. You can't look at it that way. What you have to look at is the fact that he's 30 years old. His legs are getting, he's a lot of weight for a guy his size. That takes its toll on you. If you start off and he comes out and he plays hot, now the problem is, when do you trade him? Do you ride the hot as long as you can, or do you get you can't just? It's not like, okay, this guy's putting up 1.5 points a game for the first 20 games. We got to get rid of him, right? Like that's crazy.
That's
How
crazy.
Can you do that?
But I mean, you have to.
And then the problem becomes, what happens if he gets injured? Then your return on him is zero.
So, like you said, if the first 20 games, if he's a 1.5 point guy,
I think
you get him out of there.
Now.
You get him. Well, right now, I think he could possibly get more of a return if he plays a little bit more and has a really good start of the season.
What if he has a poor start, right?
Well,
you gotta. I know you have to, if you want to get return, you gotta take a risk, right? But that's big risk and big problems if he gets hurt or if he doesn't perform. Right now, you're gonna get a good return on him. You'll get draft picks. You'll get a roster spot. You'll probably get a young prospect. I don't know how you don't do that now. Plus, the Jets are already looking at signing Andrew Ladd, who is their first priority going into the season.
You do have to sign Andrew Ladd, but I mean,
I'm undecided on that because I'm not in love with Andrew Ladd.
Not in love, but I mean, this Winnipeg Jets franchise has to.
They want stability, and Andrew Ladd's your captain.
But they have to find a first liner. They don't have a first liner. They have Andrew Ladd, glorified second liner. They have glorified second liners leading their first line. I mean, you can't have that in hockey. And they don't have a fourth line, and they don't have a third line.
See, it's tough because I really like Brian Little. I really like him.
I agree. I do like him, but he's not a first line.
See, and I don't know about that because I think if he's got better talent with him, I mean, let's be real. Ladd put up career season this year, right?
He has to. These guys have to put up career seasons or else they don't win games.
But I think if you have an all-world talent playing next to Brian Little, he's really good defensively, which is what you want out of your first line.
But an all-world talent is going to make Brian Little better.
Brian Little doesn't need to put up 100 points.
No.
Brian Little needs to win faceoffs. He needs to be fast and keep up with the play. He needs to be able to support his players. He is more of a passer than he is a goal scorer. But man, does that guy have a wrist shot? So I'm not. Is he your traditional all-star first-line center? Maybe not. But I don't think he's not a first-line center. I think, he's probably better suited for second line, but maybe is that because of the teammates that he plays with?
Well, but
that's to be decided, right?
He almost seems like he's stuck with the teammates he has been.
It all depends on what the Jets do going forward, right? You've got young players jumping into the pool this year. Who's the Jets? Their first round pick from last year, Nick Ehlers. He's jumped. I can't see him not playing.
No, he'll be on the starting lineup for the Winnipeg Jets come this offseason.
You've got other players too that can jump up into the play. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. And Nick Ehlers is a top 6 guy. He is not playing in your bottom 6. He doesn't fit on the second line. So is he getting first line minutes?
Maybe he gets first line minutes.
Michael Frolik is gone.
But
so it is assumed anyway.
Yes, maybe his first line, but realistically, I don't know if that's
going
to really work out well.
Well, why not?
Nicky,
he's not
a first line. Yet in the NHL, he's not a first line guy. You can't tell me this guy's a first line. Yes, sure, he put up numbers.
How do you know unless you see him on the ice,
we'll see him.
Yeah,
but
sure. But you've got that second line in Winnipeg with Mark Scheifele, Drew Stafford, and who do they have on their second line? I just drew blank. Brian Little, Andrew Ladd, Michael Frolik. Or was Frolik playing second and third? It all depends on what the situation is.
Yeah, when they just sort of put their players out and tried to make it work the best.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. Definitely you've got Little and Ladd on your first line. Scheifele, who is a great talent, is he going to jump into that first line role? Is that whole second line going to jump into the first? I don't see Drew Stafford as a first line guy. I'm surprised he's a second line guy, but he had a tremendous season after he got traded, right?
Well,
I guess we'll see.
I got one last thing before we move on to the dismantling of the Boston Bruins. On this Winnipeg Jets team, and I keep saying this, there isn't a first line guy. I know you maybe like Brian Little. I like Brian Little. I don't think he's a first line player, and I think if the Jets don't find a top first line player there for at least the next couple of years, I know they're projected to win the Cup in 2019. As far as that is away, they're not going to go farther in the playoffs than they are right now.
The Jets? Well, it all comes down to goaltending, right?
It does.
I'm still not sold on their goaltending, and their defense needs improvement.
But the goaltending isn't going anywhere. Pavlik will be here to start the year.
However, you've got some pretty decent goaltending in the pipeline now with Eric Comrie.
You do. You have
Hellebuck.
Hellebuck. Comrie, I think, still 1 or 2 years away. Hellebuck, though, he's the big question mark. Does he go over Hutchinson? Pavlik will be on the NHL roster come the start of the season. There's no doubt in my mind Andrew Pavlik will be there.
You going to say Connor Hellebuck comes in and he plays well and steals the spot and he's the starter? Are you going to pay Pavlik $3.5 million, $4 million to be your backup? Yeah. Not a chance.
I think Pavlik's there no matter what. Pavlik will get his chance at being the number one goaltender.
I agree to start the season.
If he craps it away, sure, that's another thing.
If he struggles, there's a lot. Now you don't have your farm club out on the rock in St. John's. Now they're in your backyard. Now it becomes a lot more, Pavlik, your leash is a little bit shorter. Prove to me that 20 games last year wasn't a fluke, because the 4 seasons prior to that.
Well, Andrew Hammond's going to get that same opportunity. He's going to try to prove it's not a fluke.
Well, and to me, it's crazy what the Senators did, but let's get to that afterwards. With the Jets, you still have I think Jacob Trouba is just your stud on defense.
He's your number one guy.
Tyler Myers is a really good player, and he came into Winnipeg and he played well because he wasn't there to be the number one guy, which was what he was in Buffalo.
He was in Buffalo,
and he wasn't meant to be.
And Buffalo was just an awful team.
Mark Stewart, soothing force on the blue line. He's that middling good leadership guy. Dustin Byfuglien remains to be seen what's going to happen with him. I can't see how you keep him. You got to trade him and get max return for him. Tobias Enstrom, same thing. Like, he's not worth the money he makes. He's kind of a pylon sometimes when it comes to forwards skating down the left side. And then you got Ben Sherratt, who played really well in the minutes that he got last year, especially with the decimation of that blue line last year, especially in January, February, when the team was so hit hard with injuries. So definitely Tyler Myers, Jacob Trouba, Ben Sherratt, Mark Stewart. That's 4 guys right there. Now what you're going to do, you're going to have Josh Morrissey coming up into the pipeline. I can't see him going back anymore. He's got to play on the big club. Who's your number 6 guy? Is it going to be Tobias Enstrom?
We'll find out. I mean,
we will.
We're going to find out nonetheless. The Winnipeg Jets have a pretty solid first round of drafting, grabbing 2 young Americans. We'll see if they can pan out for the Winnipeg Jets. Let's talk about the Boston Bruins quickly and what they did when Peter Chiarelli leaves. Trading away 2 of their best players, not getting much in return. They gave away Lucic and Dougie Hamilton to the Calgary Flames. Now, the Calgary Flames going into this season, last season rather, looked like they could be anywhere from 26th to 30th. They were phenomenal all season. How they got into the playoffs, I'm still not sure. They probably realistically couldn't have got past Anaheim, but they did challenge Anaheim in a couple games. They got Dougie Hamilton from Boston. This is solid for the Calgary Flames. They're only getting better. They're a young team. They're a team by committee. Dougie Hamilton's only going to help them.
Ridiculous what Boston is doing. And right off the hop, as soon as he got traded, the character assassination began by the Boston Bruins. That he was uppity in the locker room, that he's got a big ego, blah blah blah. The kid is 22 and he's your best defenseman. So, like, let me get this straight. You've got Boston coming and saying, you know what, we're going to offer you a bridge or not even a bridge contract. And if you're calling this a bridge, you're stupid. Here's $5.5 million for 5 years, and Dougie Hamilton comes back and says, nope, I don't want that. I want more. What is Boston doing? Like, okay, fine, we're going to just trade you. It's called negotiations.
Yeah, I think they're
negotiate.
They're cringing at the fact that maybe they gave Peter Chiarelli away now. He's worked some magic in Edmonton. We'll talk about that quickly. But first, let's get back to Boston. Where does Boston go now? They have Lucic. It seems like they're going to trade Krejci now. Chara will be gone. Tuukka Rask will be gone. Just what is this Boston team doing, and what was their thought process? I mean, they didn't get back much in the trades.
I don't know, especially with the Dougie Hamilton. I mean, Milan Lucic kind of sealed his deal when he came out at the towards the end of the season and said, you know what, I just wasn't prepared to play this season. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, you're a professional hockey player. Montreal puts you out in the second round last year. You utter death threats to players on the ice during the handshake line. And then you come out and say, I'm not prepared to play this year? What are you doing in the NHL? Like, that's crazy to me. I've never been a big Milan Lucic fan. I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan. So
understandable why you're not a Milan Lucic fan. But I mean, he puts up points. He's a pretty good player when he's on the ice. I mean, sure, he's got
all in his head.
He's got an ego. Yes, he is an idiot. But I mean,
every NHL player is going to have an ego. So anybody that
comes his ego seems to be a little bit hotter. I mean, maybe, like you said before, sending death threats while in the handshakes. I mean, this guy's a little bit crazy. Maybe he just didn't want to play in Boston anymore.
Yeah, but
they wanted to try and get something for him.
Yeah, but he fits the Boston Bruins mold, right? Big bad Bruin. He came in, he get him mad, he plays tough, he hits you, he annihilates you, he scores goals. Like, that's what Boston wanted. And then he just it's crazy to see what has happened to him this year.
And it's also crazy to see that this Boston Bruins team just a couple of years ago was one of the top Stanley Cup champions or contenders rather. I mean, they were one of the best in the league, and then 2 years later, it's just, whoa, this Boston team's going to be 26th to 30th.
Well, one of the things that I've heard, too, was, like, why did Boston not try to trade Zdeno Chara? He's at the end of his career. He's old. He's slow. What are you doing trading a 22-year-old stud defenseman and keeping a 38-year-old 6'9" molasses slow defenseman? Like, what are you doing?
I think he sort of said, you know, I want to maybe end my career in Boston. I've had a really good career here.
Love it. Sorry, business first. If this is the NHL, you want to win now? Like, Boston's going to struggle to make the playoffs.
They didn't even make it this year, and they had the core of their players.
Yeah, they had a bit of
Sure, they had some injuries, but still.
There was a lot of working against them, and, there's no excuse in that. Ottawa went on an absolute roll and stole it from them. Good for them. But at the same
Ottawa
time,
did steal it from them, yes. I understand that Ottawa had a great end of the season, but Boston didn't help themselves. They didn't. They had an awful record going down the stretch.
Well, they got rid of some key pieces, right? You let players go that need to be there. Now you're struggling to make the playoffs. You're struggling to score goals. Jerome McGinley went from a 30-goal scorer into Boston to Colorado for why? What's the reason behind that? You couldn't come to a I thought Boston was behind the whole frugal, can't spend money on free agents kind of thing. Right now they're back to that, and it's killing them. They're going to struggle to make playoffs. They're going to struggle to put up points. And any, rivalry they've had with other teams is it's on hold now.
It's different now because those rivalries seem to be because of Milan Lucic. He would bring out he'd bring out that flair you need.
But the crazy thing is the fact that now you're going to have teams that are going to beat up on the Bruins. They're going to skate past them because the Bruins are going to be a slow team. You lost one of your better skaters in Dougie Hamilton. Who is your best defenseman? You cannot recover from that.
Now, I still don't think Dougie Hamilton is at the top of his level. I still think
he's not, and that's
the thing. For Calgary, this is an absolute steal. Calgary is just, what Bob Hartley has done for that organization has been phenomenal.
Never mind that. Let's give Brian Burke some credit. He's been in charge. He doesn't want to be the GM.
Talk about Brian Burke
making some good moves there.
GM of the Year award. He didn't win it, but realistically, they could have went GM coach winning. Sure, Steve Yzerman had a great year in Tampa, but Tampa was supposed to be in that position.
Yeah.
Calgary wasn't even supposed to be remotely close, and they almost win their division.
The Flames picked up. They get Dougie Hamilton, who solidifies their top two with Giordano, right? That is going to be fun to watch in Calgary. Their team is going to be very exciting, and they were great to watch this year. Young players that are hungry, that are being led by a guy that deserved to win Coach of the Year this year in Bob Hartley. It is going to be great to see the Flames and how they progress as a franchise going forward.
Well, let's talk about the Edmonton Oilers. They received Cam Talbot from the New York Rangers for 3 picks, the number 57, 79th, and 184th. Did not give away a goalie. The Rangers then turned around and got Antti Raanta from the Chicago Blackhawks in a trade for prospect Ryan Haggerty. There's been questions in Edmonton. Where is the goaltending they need? Cam Talbot, is he the puzzle they need to win hockey games? They still need defensemen, yes, but I'll take Cam Talbot over anything they have right now.
Absolutely. For sure they need defense. They need more pieces. I think people need to kind of temper their expectations of what the Oilers are going to do this year, because they've put some nice pieces on the plate, and they're going forward. They're going to be a decent team. Cam Talbot is a very good backup goalie. He came in and he played really well for the Rangers when Henrik Lundqvist went down. Put up really good numbers. He's not going to have those numbers in Edmonton, and it's not because he's not good. Different organization, different system. One of the things the New York Rangers do is limit shots. One of the things that Edmonton doesn't do is limit shots.
Well, let's look at his.
He's going to face a lot of shots in Edmonton.
Yeah, let's look at their record when Henrik Lundqvist last year was out of the lineup for his injury. Talbot was 16-7 in their 23 starts. So this guy can win games, but it seems like this is two totally different teams. You mentioned that, but New York isn't a scoring team. Edmonton, as of right now, they're a total scoring team. Last year, I still thought they could have competed with some of the better teams. Scoring-wise, defense, they were just not even close.
That's the problem, right? They're going to score points, which is fine. You have to stop it, too. And Cam Talbot adds a little bit to that, which is good. The problem is he's not going to be able to stop enough shots to keep up with the offense for the rest of the team. So it remains to be seen what Cam Talbot's effectiveness will be. He's going to need help on defense. They're going to have to go out and see if they can pick up some players. It all depends on how Edmonton moves forward now. They've got the pieces in place with GM and with coaching. much better organizational depth as far as that goes. You don't have Kevin Lowe and you don't have Craig McTavish ruining
And
everything.
you have McClellan and Peter Chiarelli. I mean,
And
everywhere.
big Bob Nicholson coming in and absolutely changing the culture of the organization from one that was a big loser to one that is trying to establish a winning culture now.
Now, I don't want to say this Edmonton Oilers team, although I am a fan of the Oilers, that they're anywhere close to a Stanley Cup. But, I mean, I think they're in a Winnipeg Jets. They're in the same radar as far as maybe trying to squeak in the playoffs this year. I mean, if they grab a defensive pick, how could you not say they're going to have great offense? They're going to have a goaltender who can win games. Yes, they need defense, but you look at Winnipeg. How did this team? I mean, Edmonton has a first liners. They have actual first liners in Taylor Hall. He's a first line player. I personally don't think Winnipeg has that. If you look at these two teams, how could you say Winnipeg this past year if Edmonton gets pieces they still need, and I think they will. I mean, Peter Chiarelli's done an absolutely wonderful job so far. Todd McClellan behind the bench. If they get those pieces, they could be close to pushing for the playoffs this season.
Because the Jets are built for playoffs.
Are they, though? Why are they built for
because
playoffs?
Because they're built tough, they're built big, they're built fast, and that's what you need.
Well,
in the
let's talk goalies. Do you want Talbot or Pavlik? Talbot over any goaltender the Winnipeg Jets have right now.
That remains to be seen. Very, very short window of what he's done.
Talbot's been really good. He's played 3 years. He's been really good.
3 years as a backup in New York, that has been a good team. Very short window of
But
success.
still, he's won when he needed to. He's been making some really nice saves.
On really good teams that limit shots.
But still,
And that's not taking anything away from his talent, but his resume is small.
And we can't say Edmonton's not a slow team.
No, they're not.
Hall's not slow.
But they are
Hopkins,
soft as baby poo.
But that's what I'm saying.
Taylor Hall,
they haven't had a
all the
coach.
Time. Every single year, it doesn't matter.
They haven't had
soft.
any coaches. That need to
coaching
change
doesn't
things
make
around.
you a hard team.
Coaches change things around, though.
Coaches don't make you a hard team.
They absolutely they do.
GMs
Absolutely,
make you
100% they do.
No, they don't.
How?
Because you can't have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins going into the corner against guys that are way bigger than him.
Okay,
coaching no coach is going to say, Ryan, corner, go get that puck.
No, they're not going to say that.
Exactly.
But they're going to change their mentality.
To what?
100%. You don't think Todd McClellan's going to change things in Edmonton this year?
Absolutely he will. But he's not going to make them a tougher team. He can't because they're not built that way. They're built the way it was before. Take into account that Chiarelli and McClellan have only just come in.
So how many times a year do you see Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane going in the corners?
Jonathan Taves is built for that.
Patrick Kane he doesn't go in the corner very often, though.
Yeah, he does.
Jonathan Taves? No, he doesn't.
Do you watch much hockey?
A lot of it, actually.
Taves goes in and works for it. He's also a center, which, I mean, he's got to be in front of the net, too. But he's not afraid of going into the corners. And Kane, he'll do it, too.
Kane goes around.
He does, but if he has to get in there, he gets in there.
Okay, and these players will.
But that doesn't make him a big player. What I'm saying is, you look at the Jets, Andrew Ladd, 6'1", 200 pounds. Brian Little, same thing. You've got big players that can go and take the pounding.
Getting back on the Winnipeg Jets, you have a bunch of second liners.
Sure, but those second liners
are not going to win you hockey games.
They're going to
win you hockey games to maybe get in the playoffs. Get in the playoffs, sure. 7th, 8th place, lose every time, 4 games or 5 games.
So you figure that Edmonton's going to make the playoffs and beat a top tier team?
I did not say they're going to be a top tier.
No, but you're saying they're in the same range as Winnipeg, which they're not.
And Winnipeg wasn't even close to being a top tier team.
No,
they got swept by Anaheim. It was a joke.
They got swept by a team that had better goaltending and has been there before. In any sport,
I don't know if they had better goaltending.
They definitely did.
Anderson wasn't a phenomenal.
Anderson
made saves when he needed to.
Anderson had a great playoff.
Pavlik was really good in the series as well. Other than that one blemish, he was not terrible in that series.
Oh, I'm not in agreement with that, but that's whatever.
He was not terrible in that series at all.
He was not the reason why they lost the series, but he wasn't. He didn't steal him anything either.
Well, I mean, you're not going to steal it. Winnipeg
you have to.
The whole Winnipeg Jets team wasn't even close to Anaheim.
No, they weren't because Anaheim's a better team.
There was not one player that could stop Kessler, Getzlaf, or Perry.
I am not in disagreement with that at all. But the Jets are built way better for playoff hockey than the Edmonton Oilers are.
How can you say that after
because
losing 4-0?
Because Edmonton has no defense whatsoever. 0% defense.
I'm saying if they get pieces.
They have an untested Well, if ifs and buts were sugar and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas, right?
You see Peter Chiarelli, what he's done so far in Edmonton. He's going to get something.
He's done a little bit. It takes more than a month.
Oh, he's
to
already
do something on
pretty
that
much
team.
almost locked down a goalie position if you find a defense.
And that remains to be seen on what Talbot does.
I'll take Talbot.
Well, yeah.
I'll take Talbot over Corey Crawford.
Okay, so
Corey Crawford wins cups.
Corey Crawford
wins cups.
He does. You take Talbot over Crawford?
I would take, absolutely.
That's crazy to me. I'd take Crawford.
Wow.
He's proven it. He's won the cups.
Well, yeah, because he's playing on the Chicago Blackhawks.
Talbot's playing on the New York Rangers, a strictly defensive team.
Yeah, and New York doesn't win cups, though.
No, they don't. Because
even with Henrik Lundqvist in net, they don't win cups. If you're not winning cups with Henrik Lundqvist in net, you're not a Stanley Cup champion team.
You're right. But the thing is, though, the New York Rangers are also relying on guys like Rick Nash, who disappears in the playoffs. They're relying on guys like Martin St. Louis, who is 86 years old. Like, you can't do that. You can't rely on players like that, and they do that. Well, Chicago relies on players like Jonathan Toews, top 2 best players in the NHL. Patrick Kane, one of the best finishers in the NHL. Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, probably the best pairing of defensemen in the NHL. Corey Crawford, who is a middling goaltender, but he does the job when it's called upon. They're put together well.
At the end of the year, New York, if you have Lundqvist in it, you still can't win the Stanley Cup. You're not a Stanley Cup champion team.
You're right. And I feel bad for Lundqvist because he's a great goalie.
He's a great goaltender, but, I mean, he's stuck in New York. He's going to keep trying battling it out. I mean, I don't see New York winning a Stanley Cup anytime soon. Mm-hmm. Before his career is over. It's going to be pretty unfortunate that he doesn't get a Stanley Cup while his career is ending. I mean, he's definitely worthy of that.
But it's hard to win a Stanley Cup, right? Like,
especially if you're an Eastern Conference team.
For whatever reason, the Western teams bang up and get ready to bust through the door when it comes playoff time. So the Eastern teams are trying to score goals.
It's like an NBA. Western Conference until the NBA Finals is the powerhouse.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then sometimes they win the championship as well. But
and just a note on Pavlik's playoffs: 0-for-4 in wins and losses, 373 goals against average, and 891 save percentage.
Yeah,
that is horrendous
against an Anaheim Ducks team.
Horrendous.
Any other goalie would have gotten lit up. You can't just point the finger at Andrei Pavlik. Look at the defense. Look at Jacob Trouba. I mean, he's pretty much passing the puck in front.
Sure,
they were giving away goals.
You want to go through Pavlik's regular season numbers?
And he was awful for 60 games.
He was awful he only played 50 last year. He went 22-16-8, 228 goals against average, 920 save percentage. That is a phenomenal year for him. Phenomenal.
Absolutely, that's a very good.
Every other year,
he was phenomenal.
901.
Yeah, but that's looking in the past.
291.
Maybe now things are changing. Things have changed in Winnipeg. Things can change for a goaltender.
You're right, but their defense, their system got a lot better. Todd McClellan has never really been known as a defensive player or defensive team coach ever. He's been in San Jose, which has been a lot of offense. Now, it'll be interesting to see what he does because we all know the San Jose Sharks playoff history, right? First round out all the time. So we'll see what happens. Edmonton, they don't rush this. Build your team. Get defense. Go from there. You got to trade some players. One of those big 4 offensive players has got to go. Obviously, Connor McDavid is staying. He's not going anywhere. He's their franchise. He's their Wayne Gretzky for the next 15 years. But it's time to start building. Calling them a potential playoff team or saying that they're in the same range as the Jets is crazy to me.
Well, I guess we're going to find out at the end of next
we
year,
will.
right? Nonetheless, the Edmonton Oilers, Ben Scrimmins, and Cam Talbot will be fighting for number 1. After the break, for the first time since 2004, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers finally beat the Saskatchewan Roughriders in Regina. Darian Durant out again. You're listening to the First Row Sports Show on CABC3, the future broadcast. Darnell Duff, Damon Perrant. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back to the First Row Sports Show on CABC3, the future of broadcasting. For the first time since 2004, helped by a shutout in the first quarter, 7-0, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers defeat the Saskatchewan Roughriders 30-26 in Regina. The story of the game was Darian Durant. For the second year in a row, he is officially out for the year. Second year in a row that the Bombers did this to Darian Durant. Damon, do the Winnipeg Blue Bombers just really dislike Darian Durant?
Oh, his injury was fluke. It was nothing the Bombers did at all.
Was it just in his head?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's that's what got him. The Bombers are coming, and he was like, I'm done. Screw it.
Well, let's talk about the game a little bit. 7-0 in the first quarter. The Saskatchewan Roughriders won the next 2 quarters by a combined score of 7 points. They lost the fourth quarter 7-3, 30-26 final. Drew Willie was outstanding for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. 22 of 25 for 325 yards and 3 touchdowns. He definitely solidified that, if he wasn't already, that he's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers' #1 quarterback.
You know what? It was a really entertaining game. I'm not huge into the CFL. I'm more of an NFL guy. But that was a very fun game to watch. Back and forth, lots of running. The running game was huge for both teams in that game. And both quarterbacks, you've got Durant, who put up big numbers before he went out, and also Kevin Glenn put up nice numbers. It was an entertaining game. It was great to see, for sure.
Now let's talk about the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Durant started the game, went 13 of 18, 165 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then he got that foot injury that he's out for the year now.
Tore his Achilles tendon right off the bone.
Yeah, that's weird. That's weird how that happened. I mean, there was no hit. It didn't appear that anybody stepped on him. Maybe someone's.
I think it was just one of those freak accidents.
Maybe one of the offensive line stepped on him when he was snapping the ball.
I was watching the game. That wasn't it. He made the throw, and then as he came down, I don't know. It was such a freak thing. It was crazy. Kevin
Glenn came into the game 13 of 18 for 122 yards and 1 interception. So this Saskatchewan team has shown that without Darian Durant, they're not. Well, I don't want to say a great team, but they're not the same team they are with Darian Durant at quarterback.
But Kevin Glenn at quarterback is such great insurance for the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
It's nice to know that you have a second string that could play first string minutes on probably just about any team. And he will be. I mean, but do you think this Saskatchewan team now can make a push for the playoffs?
Yeah. They're a mature team. They have one of the best running backs in the game in Jerome Messam, who put up big numbers against the Bombers. And that guy's huge. He is all man, and he just ran through people. He's so fast too. It was crazy. The Bombers, they still their offense looked a lot better. Their offensive line was great.
It was night and day from last year. Really,
sure. It started off a little rough, letting up a sack and then tackle behind the line. But then just shut it down. They played so well throughout the rest of the game. Gave Drew Willie time to throw. Gave the running backs, both running backs, time to get open. Cameron Marshall was great. He came in and put up big numbers. Paris Cotton played really well.
Yeah, let's
over
look,
100 yards.
Let's
carries.
look at his numbers. 13
really
carries, 108 yards, and receiving. He had 4 catches for 59 yards. I mean, he's got to be good for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But 2 other players that have to be good is Clarence Denmark. He had 5 catches for 94 yards. His longest was 41 yards. And Nick Moore, former BC Lions product, 6 catches, 94 yards. His longest was 25 with a touchdown. Those are 2 players that have to be really good if the Winnipeg Blue Bombers do want to be successful this season.
Well, and I think the biggest thing for the Bombers, too, is their defense needs to shut down the run, because the Rough Riders ran for over 200 yards on them. And you can't have that. You're not going to win many games when that's happening. As far as the passing game goes for Saskatchewan, it looked a little, I wouldn't say it was stifled, but the Bombers did a good job of bending and not breaking. Glenn came in through a really ill-advised pass downfield, which was intercepted on the goal line, and that's huge. That could be the game if the Riders score that touchdown. Bombers defense stepped up, made the plays when they needed to, and they won.
Now, I guess the question is, in Winnipeg, is this the same as 1 year ago when the team is on absolute fire at the beginning of the year, and then they absolutely fall apart, somehow don't make the playoffs? I mean, they almost had to try to not make the playoffs to not make it last year. Is this the same as that, or is this a totally different team? I mean, we talked about their offensive line, total different from last year. They actually can defend Drew Willie.
Well, one of the biggest things is their offense now has a chance to put up numbers and can be consistent. With no offensive line last year, the first 5 games where they went 5-0, it was a struggle. And so because of that, they won on the back of a defense that wasn't going to last the whole year, and you saw what happened. This year, you've got a totally different coaching staff now as far as defensive on the ball goes. So now they have to start to kind of reel in that defense, get the running game in check, and go from there. The Bombers have a really good opportunity, especially with quarterbacks like Durant being out, Edmonton's Mike O'Reilly's out, big names that are hurt. They can make a noise in this division now.
Other scores in the CFL over the weekend. The Ottawa Redblacks got past the Montreal Alouettes 20-16. The Hamilton Tiger Cats fell a heartbreaker 24-23 to the Calgary Stampeders, and the Toronto Argonauts ran all over the Edmonton Eskimos. The Eskimos going to the season were probably one of the better shaped teams, but I mean, a 15-point loss in week 1, does that give them any troubles? I mean, there's still 17 games left.
The fact that Riley is hurt is big. Like, again, don't know much about CFL, but I don't know who their backup is. And like in the CFL, a pass-happy league, you need to have that consistency at that pivot. And right now, they may not have it.
Well, next up for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is a home affair with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Thursday, July 2nd, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 Winnipeg time. You can see that game on TSN. Friday Night Football on TSN resumes on July 3rd. Calgary Stampeders at the Montreal Alouettes as they try to get back to 1-1 after their tough loss this past weekend. You've been listening to the First Row Sports Show on CABC3, the future of broadcasting. For Damon Perrant, Darnell Duff, we'll get back to the music and have a great day.